Hello everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel called Teresa Jackson, the Cerebral Palsy Sketch Artist. If you have just come across this channel, my name is Teresa Jackson, and I educate people on disabilities and diabetes. So, if you do like my content and you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel. Today's video is about my experience living in support living and residential homes and how I found it along the way in my incredible journey. There will be different parts to this video as I cannot fit it all in one video. So, part 1. I am going to start by my first time living in a residential home. I was 14 years old when I started to live in residential care homes for personal reasons. Therefore, I couldn't live at home anymore, and so I had to go into care. Prior to when I was living in a care setting, I used to live in Norfolk with my family. I was in mainstream schools until I was 11 years old. Then from 11 years old I started to go to special needs schools. My first residential home was in a place called Cambridge by a company called Scope. Scope is a charity for people with disability, a quality charity in England and Wales, providing practical information and emotional support when it's most needed, and campaigning relentlessly to create a fairer society. On the way to the residential home in the car, I can remember that I was feeling quite anxious and worried about what it was going to be like and what I was going to expect while I was there. And I have never lived in a residential care home, and I was excited about what it was going to be like when I am living there. When I first arrived on my first day at the residential care home, I was with my support worker and social worker. When I first arrived at the residential home, I can remember that I did not want to talk to anyone when I first got there. This was because that I was nervous and anxious about being in a residential home for the first time in my life. Therefore, I did not know what to expect when I first got there. This was a challenge for me, as I like to know what was going on and what time things were, as I like knowing what time lunch and dinner was going to be, so I can plan my day. I can remember that whenever staff or someone tried to talk to me or introduce themselves, I would kind of acknowledge them but would not respond to them. Therefore, I would just stay in my room and listen to my music for the first week or two of me living there. And then when I was ready to interact with other people, I would then come out of my room and start talking to the staff that was working with me for the first week or two. But anyway, moving back to my first day. Once I had gotten to the residential home by my support worker and social worker who brought me to the home, and they had settled me in, they then went home after a few hours. After they had left, I then started to unpack my belongings and put them in my bedroom. I did not manage to unpack all my belongings on moving in day, as this took some time. So, I had to unpack for the next day or two, as I had a lot of belongings that I had with me. As I was not going to be going home from that point onwards, I was upset because I was going to be apart from my family and siblings, and I was not going to be able to see them every day like I was used to. But they would come and see me sometimes, but it was not the same as living with them every day. At tea time, I went to the dining room to eat my dinner and where the residents ate their food. This would be the first time that I met the other residents. And to be honest, I did not know how to interact with the other residents because some of the residents couldn't talk, some of them couldn't eat, and most of the residents had serious learning disabilities and I did not. This was a struggle for me as I had not necessarily had to deal with living with people who have learning disabilities before. I did not know how to communicate with the other residents because they tended to have minimum speech or no communication at all. Therefore, I felt out of my comfort zone because I don't have any learning disability, and I was the only one who had a physical disability. So, I felt that I could only talk to staff whilst I was there, but then I found a resident that I could speak to. Over time we got to know each other and then we became friends. I then felt like I was not alone anymore. We went out together to the cinema and bowling and lots more trips with other residents and it was fun. I was only there for the summer holiday before I then went to my new boarding school in Hampshire in September that year. Before the summer holidays ended, we went to a Dizzy Rascal concert. This was my first ever concert and I loved it to the point where I will never forget it. Next, I am going to talk about moving in and living in a residential school and college. The first time that I attended my residential school and college was when I was 14 years old. Before this time I was in day schools where I went home after the school day was finished. At the previous school where I attended to before I went to my boarding school, most of the students had learning disabilities. So, the education system was lower than my level of learning. And therefore, starting a new school with a new curriculum system was a hard adjustment and change for me to get used to. The first day at my boarding school felt very daunting and intensive as I did not know anyone, and I had to learn the new routines and times of lessons, break times, lunch and dinner times. Also, I had to get used to living with 50 to 90 students in one house, which I had never done before as I had not attended a boarding school before. But I got used to the new routine very quickly. Although I found some stuff difficult because I didn't like or get along with the students who were full of themselves, and I am quiet, and I kept myself to myself. And therefore, I was in my bedroom a lot because I did not like being around a lot of people or busy areas. I was not used to having students like me around. This was the first time that I was around people who had just a physical disability and not a learning disability. I did get a lot of homesickness at first because I had not lived away from home before, and my family was 4 hours away from me. It was extremely hard to get used to. But over time the homesickness got better gradually after a few weeks of settling into the new environment. I then began to make new friends and got to know the new staff that was going to work with me. The staff who worked with me were very nice, friendly and helpful whilst I was settled into the school. I did not know anyone, and this made me feel anxious and I didn't want to talk to anybody. After a few weeks the routine felt like I had been doing it all my life and I was really enjoying my education. I was studying for my GCSEs for the next academic year, which I was really excited about doing my exams. Because I was told that I wasn't going to be able to do my GCSEs all my life as I was in a school for people with learning disabilities, and to hear that I would to be able to do my exams was amazing. I then started to learn all the subjects that I was going to do the exams. I was not that good at maths, and I did struggle on learning maths as it got harder to understand. I did enjoy my English lessons because I like writing and doing creative writing, and I also enjoyed my art lessons, but unluckily for me as my school they did not do the subject in a GCSE at the time. There was a lot we had to learn for the exams subjects that we were taking the exams for. In the lead up to the actual exams we did do some mock exams to prepare ourselves for what to expect from the actual exams. The way that the GCSE was set out for people who have disabilities is different to a mainstream school set out. We did get extra time to do our exams due to our physical and medical conditions, and each student had their own room with the person who was the student scribe. There were students who couldn't write with a pen, one of them being myself. We had to dictate to our scribe to get our answers down. Scribes were not allowed to write our own answers in their own words, it had to be in a student's own answer word for word. Scribes were not allowed to add words or rephrase our answers in their own words. After the mock exams we then went on a residential school trip for a week where we did some fun activities such as rock climbing, indoor activities and outdoor activities. The trip was amazing and fun, and it did open my eyes to new things. On the trip there was a lot of laughter and giggles about people canoeing, etc. I will never forget how fun and amazing it was. At the end of the school year, we had our prom. As when you were in year 9 and 10, we had 2 proms for each year. Every year I took a date as it was traditionally the thing to do. The first year I wore a peach gown dress with some flower patterned sandals, a glittery bag and some jewelry. And it was a good time. The second year of prom I wore a dark blue dress with a silver bag, jewelry and sandals. That year I was runner-up in prom queen. I wasn't trying to win anything, but I was happy that I won. I was surprised that I won it, as I was not really a girly girl and I am still not a girly girl. I am a laid-back person. I could not believe that my peers would choose me, as I did not mix with the other students that much. That September I started at the college department at the residential school and college where I lived. I chose to do level 1 art and design, and this is where my artist journey began. At first, I was very reluctant to do the art and design course, as I really wanted to study health and social care because my aim was to become a social worker after I left school and college. But the college that I was attending did not have any health and social care, and art was my second preference of choice. In the first few weeks of being at college I was not keen on doing art, and I didn't think that I was not going to take it anywhere later in my life. But I was wrong. I started to enjoy the course after a few weeks into the year. I started to learn how to draw with a picture projected onto a table so I could draw around the picture. And then I also made a sculpture of Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament out of paper mache. Then I learned how to draw portraits, sketches of buildings and many other things. A few months after the new college year, I started to really like art, but I didn't think I would take it anywhere in life. I then was asked by the college marketing team and my tutor if I would be interested in doing a drawing for Lord Robert Winston, which I said that I would love to. The drawing that I chose to do was a sketch drawing of Big Ben with a stenciled pattern background done with paint. I was happy that I had done it, and when he got it, he then wrote me a letter to say thank you for the drawing that I have done for him. I was really surprised that Robert Winston wrote me a letter to me. I was really pleased and proud of myself that I made a good impression of myself to someone who is extremely important in the United Kingdom. I then started to do work experience in a nursery with children where I helped teach them art once a week. During the week between the day that I did my work experience, I had to draw the outlines of animals and sea themes for the next week. I really enjoyed my time doing my work experience, as I felt like I got happiness out of this. At the end of the college year, we had another prom. I took my boyfriend at the time. We were engaged, and after college that year we were planning to live together. We got engaged that year a week or two before prom. That year at prom I had a light-colored gown with sandals and a silver bag. At the time I was 18, so I was allowed to drink at prom. I had some Prosecco, and I got a little bit drunk, but it was a good and fun night. I hope you all enjoyed part 1 on what it is like living in support living and residential homes from my experience and how I find it. Please join me for part 2 on this amazing journey. I would love it if you watch part 2, as you will learn so much about my journey. Please feel free to leave a comment with your thoughts and questions. See you all soon.